The 18th of November, 1942, the skies above Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. A lone Japanese Zero pilot strains for altitude as a strange silver shape with twin tails and twin engines climbs effortlessly past him. That morning, the U.S. Army Air Force's P-38 Lightning entered combat for the first time, and the age of the Zero's supremacy began to die. This is more than a dogfight. It is the day technology and industry overtook tradition and courage. From the Lightning's birth in a Lockheed design shop to its breathtaking 400-mile Operation Vengeance mission that killed Admiral Yamamoto, this aircraft will prove that speed, altitude, and relentless innovation can shatter even the most disciplined warrior culture. It will outclimb, outdive, and outgun the Zero, destroy Japan's veteran pilot corps, and rewrite aerial warfare itself. Over the next 15 minutes, we'll trace how a radical design of twin engines and concentrated nose firepower changed the Pacific War, how America's factories and pilot schools kept improving while Japan's training collapsed, and how legends like Richard Bong and Thomas McGuire turned the Lightning into a symbol of unstoppable modern warfare. By the end of World War II, more than 1,800 Japanese aircraft would fall to P-38 guns, and even Japan's greatest ace, Saburō Sakai, would admit the P-38 destroyed the morale of the Zero fighter pilot. The age of the samurai was over. In 1941 and early 1942, Japan's Mitsubishi A6M Zero was the terror of the Pacific. It combined an incredible range over 1,900 miles with a tight turning radius, allowing experienced pilots to dance around slower Allied fighters. From Pearl Harbor to Singapore and the Philippines, the Zero cut through outdated Brewster Buffaloes, Curtiss P-40, and British Hurricanes. Victories piled up, and Japanese pilots came to believe they could not be beaten. Many, like ace Saburō Sakai, collected dozens of kills and felt invincible. But while Japan celebrated, a very different philosophy of air combat was taking shape thousands of miles away in Burbank, California. In 1937, the U.S. Army Air Corps asked for a fighter that could fly over 400 miles per hour, climb to 40,000 feet, and strike targets 1,000 miles away. Lockheed designer Clarence Kelly Johnson and his team responded with something radical, the P-38 Lightning. Its twin Allison V-17, 10 turbo-supercharged engines maintained full power even at extreme altitudes. All of its guns, 4.50 caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon were mounted in the nose, delivering a single, deadly stream of fire that required no complex wing gun convergence. Armor and self-sealing fuel tanks gave pilots a fighting chance to survive damage. Where the Zero embodied lightness and agility, the Lightning embodied speed, altitude, and survivability, an engineering leap forward. The P-38 arrived quietly in the Pacific during 1942, its debut delayed by early mechanical issues. By November, pilots of the 339th Fighter Squadron were ready. On the 18th of November, 1942, they escorted B-17 bombers from Henderson Field and met Japanese Zeros for the first time. The clash stunned both sides. The Lightnings climbed faster than the Zeros could follow, striking from a 5,000-foot altitude advantage. In minutes, they downed 3 enemy planes. The Zero's legendary low-speed turn was useless at these heights and speeds. For the first time in the war, Japanese pilots faced an Allied fighter that dictated when and how the fight began. The Lightning's advantages were not just raw speed. Its pilots adopted boom and zoom tactics, dive from high altitude, fire a concentrated burst, and climb back to safety before the enemy could react. The Zero, whose controls stiffened above 250 miles per hour and nearly froze at 300, simply could not follow. Japanese intelligence tried to dismiss early reports of a twin-engine fighter as exaggeration, but every encounter confirmed the truth. The P-38 could outclimb, outdive, and outrun the Zero. Turbo-superchargers kept its engines strong above 25,000 feet, where the Zero's power fell away. Even when hit, the Lightning could limp home on one engine, something a Zero pilot could only dream of. The P-38's reputation crystallized on the 18th of April, 1943. 16 Lightnings launched from Guadalcanal to intercept Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, architect of the Pearl Harbor attack. Flying 435 miles over open ocean at wave-top height to avoid radar, they climbed at the exact moment to meet Yamamoto's bomber to the minute. The Admiral's aircraft went down in flames. For Japan, it was a psychological earthquake. Their most revered commander killed deep in territory they thought secure by fighters whose precision navigation and extreme range Japanese pilots admitted they could not have matched. Behind the Lightning's performance stood the immense industrial power of the United States. Lockheed produced over 10,000 P-38, each new model improving on the last with dive flaps, boosted ailerons, and better cockpits. American pilots typically logged 400-600 flight hours and trained with gun camera footage, formation tactics, and high-altitude oxygen systems. Japan's reality was the opposite. By 1944, pilot training had shrunk to under 6 months and less than 100 hours of flight time. Fuel shortages, limited practice. Maintenance crews struggled to keep even half the Zero fleet flying. The gap in skill and readiness widened into a chasm. Through 1943 and 1944, the P-38 kept evolving faster, higher, deadlier. Reconnaissance variants mapped enemy bases with impunity. The P-38L, with upgraded engines and rockets, became a fighter bomber that could destroy ground targets as easily as aircraft. Japanese countermeasures, dive breaks, looser formations, experimental twin-engine fighters like the Kawasaki Ki-102 all failed. Captured documents began advising pilots to avoid combat with the P-38 unless overwhelming numbers favored them, an unthinkable reversal of the samurai ethos. By war's end, over 90% of Japan's experienced aviators were gone. The Lightning exposed a deeper weakness than any technical flaw. Japan had built its air doctrine on the Bushido ideal, courage and individual skill as the keys to victory. The P-38 showed that modern war rewards engineering, production, and systematized tactics. As one Japanese officer admitted after the war, "We confused courage with capability. The P-38 showed us we were wrong about everything." From the island-hopping campaigns to the great carrier battles of 1944, this revelation forced Japan into desperate gambles like kamikaze attacks, a tragic acknowledgement that conventional air combat was lost. By 1945, the results were undeniable. 1,800 plus Japanese aircraft destroyed by P-38. America's two top aces, Richard Bong with 40 kills and Thomas McGuire with 38, scored every victory in P-38. The Lightning's unique silhouette, dubbed the twin-tailed devil, became a symbol of American industrial and tactical supremacy. Even revered aces like Saburō Sakai confessed that the Lightning destroyed the morale of the Zero fighter pilot and marked the end of an era when bravery alone could decide a battle. The P-38 Lightning was more than a fast airplane. It was the embodiment of a new kind of warfare where science, mass production, and constant innovation overwhelmed tradition. In the skies over the Pacific, the age of the lone warrior pilot ended. Technology, not courage, would now decide the air. Japan's Zero, the terror of 1941, was obsolete by 1943. Its pilots, once the elite of the Imperial Navy, found their hard-won aerobatic skills meaningless against an enemy that refused to fight on their terms. The Lightning's shadow extended beyond the war, shaping the jet age and influencing Japan's own post-war embrace of high technology. The lesson, as Saburō Sakai later put it, was stark. The age of the samurai was over. In the skies over the Pacific, we met the future and it destroyed us. The Lockheed P-38 Lightning was more than an aircraft, it was a statement of what the modern world had become. Its twin engines and turbo-superchargers symbolized a new age of science and industry, where innovation moved faster than tradition could follow. From its first strike over Guadalcanal to the pinpoint interception of Admiral Yamamoto, the Lightning proved that careful design, relentless improvement, and coordinated production could decide a war as surely as any weapon on the battlefield. For Japan, the lesson was devastating. The warrior ideal that had guided generations, the belief that courage and individual skill would always triumph, was swept aside in a few short years. Even the bravest pilots, men like Saburō Sakai, were forced to admit that technology had rewritten the meaning of bravery itself. And for the world, the P-38 became a bridge to the future. It foreshadowed the jet age, inspired post-war aircraft design on both sides of the Cold War, and left a message still relevant today in modern conflict. Courage without capability is not heroism, but tragedy. The twin-tailed devil did more than win battles. It changed the very definition of air power, showing that the decisive victories of the 20th century would belong not to the most fearless, but to the most prepared, the most inventive, and the most relentless. In the clouds above the Pacific, the age of the lone warrior ended and the era of technological warfare truly began.